I'm PhocusWire Editor-in-Chief Mitra Sorrells, and I am joined by Justin Jander. He is Senior Director of Product Management at Pros. Welcome, Justin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So I know that for nearly 40 years, Pros has been helping airlines drive revenue and modernize their retailing strategies. Certainly these days, the industry is in a transition as airlines are shifting to offer and order, something, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Help us understand why this shift is important and what it means, not just for the industry, but for the individual airlines and, of course, for the travelers.
Yeah, I mean, of course, offer and order management is a hot topic these days. It's become sort of its own word or phrase that everybody's using, and I think it is important to really define what that means and make sure that we're all speaking the same language. And that's something that we've been working a lot on at Pros to just make sure that we're even just saying the same thing. And so, just as the name implies, it's offers and orders, right? And so the offer piece is really about presenting the total package of things that the passenger would want to buy for their travel experience. And of course, that still is a very broad definition, of course, because it's what the offer is really a lot of things when you think about what you buy when you go for traveling. And if we narrow that down to the airlines landscape, then we're really thinking about things like the flight itself, so the ability to fly somewhere, as well as the things that you want when you're on board. So whether that be ancillary components like seat selection or meals or the ability to board early, lounge access, those types of things, and as well as then taking it to the next step, which is once you're off the plane. So transfers to your destination, hotels, car rentals, all of those things make up the offer. And of course, the airline wants to maximize the revenue across that, right? So they want to make sure that they're collecting as much money as possible because, of course, they're a business. They and a small margin business as well. So any opportunity that you have to increase your revenue is beneficial to the airline. And from the passenger side, when you think about the offer, it's really about presenting me the things that I want in one stop. So giving me a better experience, both in the booking process, but then also on board, making sure that the airline's told me, the passenger, about the things that I need as part of that. Now, of course, that's the offer component. Great. So you've come up with a great offer, you've presented to the passenger, but then that turns into an order. So now you've actually made the order, you've purchased it. So now there's a Seinfeld reference of you can take the offer or take the order, but can you hold the reservation? And I always make that joke because it's really relevant here that it doesn't stop at being able to just make the offer and take the offer and turn it into an order, but actually delivering on that to the passenger is a critical component. And that's really where, we think about modernization comes into play, because the process of orders today is very disjointed. And so it's not something that we see a great experience for the passengers on today. So if you have a disruption, for example, you've purchased seat selection as part of your purchase, you may have to call the airline to get that changed over. It's not a seamless process. And that's just one small example of how that can work.
Yeah, well, certainly disruption is something we've heard quite a bit about lately, for sure. So,
Indeed.
So as you're talking there about some of the benefits for airlines specifically, of course, revenue, there's the loyalty piece. What should airlines be considering during this transition to really maximize and unlock those benefits?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think the first is sort of a modularity is the popular term for it right now. But what we're really talking about is making sure that the airline is able to bring the technology that they want to this equation, because there's going to be a lot of components. I mean, what we just talked about, even the existing systems today, there's a lot of different systems. And so what the airline needs to be thinking about is that whole ecosystem and how that fits together. So I'd say that's the first thing, is creating a picture around what do you want to achieve as an airline in this new world? And then how does the technology work for you to achieve that? And so you're not just saying, I'm taking the technology that I've been told to take, but I'm taking the technology that makes sense for my business. And there's a sense of like, that may cost you a little more because you have to, look at different places. But as an industry, we need to be focused on what the technology solving the problem that we want to solve, and making sure that it works for us in those cases. So I think that that's one piece. And the other thing that I would say is not getting into a analysis paralysis situation. So don't let it be the case that you think that this vision is so far out in the future that you can't do anything until you get to that final state. There's a lot that airlines can do in the interim, and I think really making sure that the airline is focused on what I can achieve right now and not getting lost in the minutia of something that frankly is going to take 10 years to get to. If you wait 10 years, you'll be behind when the 10-year mark gets there. And that's 10 years of opportunity that was left on the table.
Yeah. So steps along the way, it sounds like, for
Exactly.
sure. I know offer optimization. You talked about offers. Offer optimization is a real key component of all of this. Can you tell us just a bit more about what that entails and how airlines get there?
Yeah, so offer optimization, we really see that as an extension of revenue management. And so revenue management is something Pros has been in for as you said, over 40, almost 40 years now. And from our side, we see that offer optimization is an extension of that, because what you have is you have a capacity constrained product that you're offering, right? So there's not infinite seats on an airplane. So you have that capacity constrained part of the offer, and then you have all the rest of the components that make up the offer, as I was talking about before. And so really when we think about what it means, what we're saying is understanding that total picture of what the passenger wants, and then understanding what they're willing to pay for that. And willingness to pay has become a very popular term in the airline industry lately, and it's something we feel strongly about. And what we're trying to do there is understand what is the price sensitivity for a given product or offer to the passenger. And so offer optimization is all about understanding, given the capacity constraint that I have, as well as the passenger's willingness to pay, how do I pair those together to make sure I present the right price to the passenger that ultimately maximizes revenue for me as the airline? Of course, that's the important thing from the airline's perspective, is maximizing revenue. But it doesn't stop there. When we're talking about offers, it's not just the maximizing revenue, but improving the experience for the passengers. So how do I present the things that the airline needs? So we're even talking about a web page, the airline's internet booking engine being dynamic for when it's Justin making that booking, showing me a different set of ancillaries or a different order of the ancillaries because of my preferences, versus when you, Mitra, would be on the site, you might see a different set of ancillaries or a different order of those ancillaries. And that all fits together into the offer optimization point, so that we're thinking about things about the order of the offer, the presentation of the offer, and then of course the price of the offer, all with the goal of maximizing revenue for the airline, and then ensuring that if you have more demand than there is capacity, making sure that you're holding that capacity for your highest paying passengers, which ultimately is the whole premise behind revenue management from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Super interesting. I know as we're getting ready to wrap up, I have to bring up, of course, the topic that everybody's talking about, which is artificial intelligence. I know that Pros has been, a leader with using AI for many, many years. It's not just in the last year and a half that some people have become aware of it. So help us understand how AI fits in to this and the importance of the data science.
That's a great point, and it's a great question. I think that when with AI, it's the new term, and there's new technology that's been unleashed with this resurgence or initial surgence of AI. But Pros has been a data science company from the beginning, and that's actually what we were sort of founded on, was this idea that the underlying science can help drive better decisions for the airline and maximizing revenue. And the same tenets that we had and back then are still applied today. What AI has unleashed is more technology, more opportunity for us to do more with the data science that's available today. And so that's really exciting for us. And I think that where we see that going is using tools that we may not have otherwise had. So like one example that's a big focus right now is dynamic ancillary pricing. So we talked a lot about ancillaries today. So today, for the most part, ancillary prices are very fixed. If an airline experiments at all, it's on a very limited basis. And this idea is, think about bags, for example. In the domestic US, bag prices are pretty fixed. It's $35 for your first bag, $55 or whatever it is for the second bag. And different airlines may have different prices, but generally it's a pretty fixed price. But that's revenue that's being left on the table. So think about a business traveler who swears she'll never check a bag, right? But what if you presented that check bag fee at $10? there's an opportunity there that you may convince them to check a bag, and that's $10 of incremental revenue that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And of course, the other side of that equation is the one that's less desirable as a traveler, which is you're more willing to pay for a bag. So let's actually offer the price instead of at $35, let's offer it at $45 because you have a higher willingness to pay. And of course, as travelers, we may not like that, but that, as I mentioned, the airline is a low margin business. So any of that incremental revenue can help keep them in business. And I think that that's an important part here, that as a traveler, we take that for granted that the airline exists. And sometimes that's something that we have to recognize, that they are so tight on the margins that they need this incremental revenue. And so when we think about what we're doing around ancillary pricing, is the part that AI really helps us on our side is that since you've had no price variability in the historical data, you don't have a really good idea of what Justin would pay for a bag versus what Mitra would pay for a bag. And I think that's one of those components where we can now do price experimentation. But of course, an analyst at the airline can sit and do price experimentation. But what we're offering that's unique is scientifically experimenting with that price. And then you can converge faster. The technology allows us to converge on the right price faster so that we can really get an understanding better. And that's our dynamic ancillary pricing tool, is doing exactly that. And we have a proof point where we've done that with Air Baltic in Europe, and we've seen really great results, up to 6% revenue uplift on their advanced seat selection that they're doing. So that's just a small kind of example of where we're seeing a great opportunity with dynamic ancillary pricing, leveraging the AI technology that goes with it. So it's really it's such a powerful tool, and what Pros really believes is in harnessing that power and making sure we're using it to solve the problem that's in front of us, rather than just arbitrarily saying we're using AI. We don't want to just use AI for the sake of using it. What we want to do is solve the problem that's in front of us. And I think that that's something that the industry needs to be and is focused on as well, is using the tools to make the process better, and not just using it for the sake of using it. And that's a really important part, and I think something that Pros has embraced, and the industry is embracing. We're gonna continue to see that evolve as we go forward.
Yeah, well, it's certainly very interesting. It's an exciting time, I think, across the industry. When I think about it, both, with the coverage that we do of the industry, and then just in my personal experience as a traveler, I think there's a lot of exciting things happening. So it's really great to hear about all that. Justin Jander from Pros, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.